After many months of not flowing, my favourite river received good rain in the catchment. So naturally I took a fishing rod and a recurve bow into the gorge and hung out for a day. The rock in the river here is normally a sure thing to catch a cod. We didn't get one on this day, but I'll roll a picture in here that you can see what it looked like a couple of months ago. Some of you may recognise this piece of footage of me walking the dry riverbed from the video of me shooting my first goat with a recurve. Just missed him. Fishing and hunting are one and the same for me. In this sort of country, I'm casting at specific spots that I believe a fish might be hiding. I had one follow me in here, but he wasn't keen enough to have a crack. So I decided to cast back at the same spot and drag it in with a bit more intensity to try and encourage him to strike. And that's what happened. It's easy to see how delighted I was to catch this fish. Besides the fact it was the first one I'd caught in about a year, I was so pleased to see that fish had survived in these holes during the peak of the drought. Lacks a little bit of condition, but he'll get that back soon enough. This hole is the most productive on the stretch of river I have access to. I always find myself there in the middle of a day, and the heat while standing on these rocks is nearly too much to bear. But I find I can drag cod out of the shadows across the river, and sometimes they hit me from under the rocks at my feet, as this one did here. People who have caught a few cod will be familiar with the feeling of pausing to adjust your hat or scratch your nose, and that's when one will hit you. He wasn't hooked too well and spat the lure as I dragged him in. See you next time, mate. For anybody interested, the lure I was using was a Predatech Sand Viper in Kakadu Tiger colour. It's a lure that's been designed for shallow water barramundi fishing, but I find in this small water here, it's perfect for cod. I take the rear barb out when fishing for these smaller cod because it reduces the risk of a fish catching a hook in the eye. They cast really well too. That was the last fish I caught for the day. I was sick of standing on those rocks, getting pumped by the sun. So I sat in the shade and had something to eat and a drink and chilled out for a little bit. There was still plenty of time left in the day, so I cooled off and thought about looking for a goat with the bow. I've been at the range practicing the day earlier and was shooting pretty well, so I reminded myself that I had the skills and kept my confidence up and tried to make it happen. I found a big mob of goats across the river in an open area, and while I was watching them, this young billy came out of the scrub in front of me. I knocked an arrow, and when he stopped perfectly with his head behind a tree, broadside, I couldn't resist. The shot seemed a little far back at first, but when I found my arrow, it was covered in really good blood. So I put it in my quiver and started to follow him up. I'd sharpened my broadheads really well the day before. I was using an Outback Broadheads 200 grain stealth. So I was confident that he'd bleed out quickly, and you can see he didn't go far at all. Probably about 30 yards, maybe 40. So that was a great end to a wonderful day in the gorge, chasing some cod and some goats.